Hello everyone, I'll introduce. My name is Lenten, but you can call me Chui. The season of Lent is an invitation to the churches and to anyone else who wishes to do so, to reflect on the disturbing story of the torture and crucifixion of Jesus of Nazareth as described in the New Testament. It is one of the most widely known and often retold stories in human history. Yet, despite being read and remembered so often, there is a part of the story which typically reserves little attention and minimal discussion: the striping of Jesus. The Me Too movement has highlighted the privilege of sexual assault, sexual harassment, and other sexual abuse experienced by women and girls in many different forms. It has also exposed the common tendency to deny, dismiss, of minimize the significance and impact of those experiences. The striping of Jesus, which is imaged during this parents' Lenten period, it seems especially appropriate to recall the striping of Jesus, and to name it for what it was, intended to be a powerful display of humiliation and gender-based violence, which should be acknowledged as an act of sexual violence and abuse. The idea that Jesus himself experienced sexual abuse may seem strange or shocking at first, but crucifixion was a supreme punishment, and the striping and the export of punishment was not an accidental or incidental element. It was deliberate action. The Romans eyes to humiliate and graded those they wished to the punish. It was a deliberate action that the Romans asked to humiliate and degrade those they wished to punish. In the myth that the crucifixion was more than just physical, it was also a devastating emotional and physical punishment. The codification in Christian art of covering Christ's nakedness of the course with eye launch loads its parts an understandable response to the instant infinity of Roman's crucifixions. But this should not prevent us from recognizing that the historical reality would have been very different. This is not just a matter of correcting the historical record. If Jesus is marked as a victim of sexual abuse, it could make a whole difference to how the churches age with movements like Me Too, and how they promote checks and whether society. This could contribute significantly to positive change in many churches and especially in societies where the majority of people identify as Christian. Some skeptics might respond that stripping a prisoner might a form of violence of base, but it's misleading to call this sexual violence or sexual abuse. Yet if the purpose was to humiliate the captive and expose him to mockery by others, and if the stripping is done against his will and as a way to deceive him in public, this, the recognizing in it as form of sexual violence or sexual abuse seems actually justified. The way that the stripping some skeptic makes response the stripping a prisoner make a form of violence of base, but it's misleading to call this sexual violence or sexual abuse. Yet if the purpose was to humiliate the captive and expose him to mockery by others, and if the stripping is done against his will and as a way to deceive him in public, this, the recognizing in it as form of sexual violence or sexual abuse seems actually justified. The way that the stripping of Vercingetorix, kings of the Averni, is effective in the first episode of the first series of the HBO series. Rome is an example of this. Combating gender is central to the reader's seeming unwillingness to recognize the sexual abuse to which he is a subject. Analysis of the gendering of nakeds by Marger R. Miles demonstrate that we view male and female magnets differently in the biblical art in the Christian West. Millet argued that, that the naked male body represents glorious activisms representing spirituals as well as physical striving. Sexual abuse does form part of the narrative of masculinity inferred in supplication of Jesus. Nesca's woman, however, are implicitly identified as sexual object. Seeing a woman being forcibly stripped that might be more recognizable as sexual abuse than the stripping of Jesus in the Gospel of Matthew and Mark. If Christ was a female figure, the world is hesitant to recognize her ideals as sexual abuse. Some parents die Christian are still reluctant to accept that Jesus was a victim of sexual violence and seems to consider sexual abuse as an essentially female experience. We may not that to dwell on the starving individual or creation for the world years, but it's not right to force about it completely either. The sexual abuse of Jesus is amazing part of Passion of Esther story retelling. It is approach to recognize Jesus as a victim of sexual violence to others, the continuing stigma for those with free expressed sexual abuse, especially men. Lent offers a period in which the stark reality of Christians makes the recollect and connected to the important question that moved like Me Too are rising for the churches and for wider sociality. On we acknowledge the sexual abuse of Jesus' purpose, will be more willing to acknowledge sexual abuse in our own context. Conclusion. The striping of Jesus with his might during this parents-Lenten period, it seems expressly appropriate to recall the striping of Jesus, and to name it for what it was incited to be a powerful display of humiliation and gender-based violence. One should be acknowledged as an act of sexual violence and abuse. Some skeptics might respond that stripping a prisoner might be a form of violence or abuse, but it's misleading to call this sexual violence or sexual abuse. Yet if the purpose was to humiliate the captive and expose him to the mockery by others, and if the stripping is done again against his will and asked away to the same will in public, the recognizing in it as a form of sexual violence or sexual abuse seems entirely justified. Some friends, they Christian, are will reluctant to accept that Jesus was a victim of sexual violence and seem to consider sexual abuse as an actually female experience. It's a praise to the recognize Jesus as a victim of sexual violence to others, the continuing stigma for those who we as traded sexual abuse, especially men. As we acknowledge the sexual abuse of Jesus, purpose will be more willing acknowledge sexual abuse in our own context. Thank you.